Okay. So also, since people have been to my trainings before, we know that there's always some people who come just a little bit late. Also, anyone who hasn't already, we have a sign-in sheet and some feedback forms for you to during training and after training. Just let us know if there is something that you're like, wow, I really wish they covered this topic, or I'm so happy they talked about that. That's what we want to hear about. So this is the second time we've done this training, and we want to keep doing it. So this is how we get that information. So those feedback forms over there, and then we have something that we're going to share with you afterwards, and so that's why we also have the sign-in sheet. So either now or before you leave, just make sure you sign in. We'll give it another minute or so, just because I know we always have stragglers, and we don't want to make sure no one feels left out. Okay. So yeah. Exciting training.
Wow. Training time.
And just word of warning. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, we've got seats here. Pretty sure no one bites here. Just go ahead and sign in, feedback forms. I'm just going to be spieling all over the place here. And just, this is a warning for, not a warning, a heads up for my participants who are here in the room. I already told Logan about this. I have a habit that whenever we have GoToMeeting as an option for one of our training sessions, I pretend that there's an extra person in the room, and I sometimes will look at the computer pretending it's a person, because I like to make eye contact with all of my participants. So if you ever see me awkwardly looking at the computer or talking to the computer like it's a person, that's why. In my head, I'm pretending that they're in the room with us. So it's just one of those training facilitator quirks that I have. So don't mind me.
I'll look at you because I have a computer.
Yeah, I'm the odd one of the two of us. So, okay, I think now's a good time. We'll let Chris awkwardly stumble back in.
That's okay. He's
our coworker, so we can do this to him. Right. So we're going to get started. So hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming out. Grab a seat. So also heads up, I'm sorry, the GoToMeeting, you'll see it on your screen. It's just going to happen. Can't avoid it. So hello and welcome. We're very, very happy to do our second version of the CMS design and layout best practices with everyone. This was something that Logan, say hi.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. On GoToMeeting. Thanks for joining us.
This is something that my coworker Logan and I have really wanted to do. We've gotten a lot of feedback from CMS users like yourselves, and this was one of those topics that everyone said, hey, I want to learn more about this. For those of you who are new, my name is Katie. I am I'm the web training and content support specialist. My title is so long, and it just gets jumbled in my head sometimes. Basically, I'm the trainer for all of the things here. And my wonderful coworker, Logan.
Hi, I'm a web designer, so I make things look pretty. I make emails, websites, graphics, that kind of thing.
Yes, and we both work in the digital communications group, so you've probably worked with us in some fashion or another, especially if you work in CMS, do anything with email direct or NYU lists, anything like that, okay? So we're going to get started. Just a couple of things real quick. I'm from New York, specifically I'm from Long Island, and sometimes I talk fast. If for any reason you can't hear me or can't understand what I'm saying, feel free. Katie, can you say that again? Can you slow down? Totally fine, I get it, no hard feelings. I just want to make sure that you're getting that information, so just let me know, okay? All right, so this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with some best practices for creating your overall page layout in the CMS. And then Logan is going to cover some design resources for us. And then we're going to have time for question and answer, okay? There is one thing regarding the agenda that I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. If there were particular questions that were maybe a little bit off topic or maybe about a component that didn't necessarily apply to the overall, topic of this training session, I may ask you to either stay after and talk to me then or shoot an email to us, just because I want to make sure that everything we're talking about is of value to everyone, because some things can be really specific. I want to make sure everyone is walking away with resources that are applicable, okay? And I will try to do it in as nice a way as possible, and I always take notes, okay? And everyone, at the end of the training, we are going to share a lovely workbook that I emailed everyone about that Logan made. And it's got all of the resources we're talking about today, and it is interactive, so you can follow all the links inside, okay?
So you don't have to worry about furiously taking notes.
But you can take all the notes you want if you want to.
Whatever works.
All right. Without further ado, best practice number 1. I'm a huge nerd, by the way, so I hope you like my examples. So avoid mixing promo styles on the same page. So, probably zoom in a little bit more, but this is about as zoomed in as it's going to get. So we have here the Department of Transfiguration from the wonderful wizarding world of Harry Potter. And we've got 3 promos right over here that I've circled for you, okay? We have a gray panel promo, a rounded promo, and a 1-column square promo, okay? But they're actually all talking about the same thing. And so this is something that we want to avoid, and it's actually something we have seen on pages across CMS, which is why we bring it up. But we want to avoid this. So why do we want to avoid this? Well, it makes it confusing for site viewers to distinguish different categories of links because there's no consistency, okay? So, sorry, I need water. So let's say, for instance, you are from Housing and Residential Life, and you want your site viewers to tour different residence halls. If you're using different promo styles, your site viewers can get confused because, well, this promo is for a residence hall, but is this one? It looks different. So it can kind of throw them off because they don't have the same overall look and feel. Additionally, it's just not visually appealing, especially if you saw them all mixed together. You have one that's gray, one that has like the rounded edge. Thank you so much. You are a lifesaver. They don't mix and match because they're not, once again, they're not consistent. And then thirdly, it can throw off the overall symmetry of the page layout because, once again, they're going to stop at different points vertically on your page. And depending on how many you have and the type of content, it can really throw that off. So if you're using the same style of promo, you can maintain that consistency throughout. And symmetry, as long as it's not overdone, can be very, very beautiful. Okay, so this is the redone page. And you can see I just used the rounded promo. And it looks so much prettier. And now I really want to go to Hogwarts, although it didn't take much convincing. Okay. So best practice number 2. Oh, so much better. All right, do not place important text content in images. I cannot stress this one enough. Like, huge exclamation point at the end of that. I should have added it in this slide. Do not place important text content in images. So for this example, we're going to go to the world of Star Wars. And we have the Order of the Jedi Knights. And they have very important academy meetings, everyone. The younglings, the Padawans, the Knights, the Masters, and they're all meeting on May 4th, all at different times and important locations. And this image is lovely. It's got the right font and everything. It's fantastic. Maybe it's really good if you're going to have a poster and you want to email it out. But on a website, this is actually not a good practice to have, okay? And there are several reasons why. The number 1, most important reason why you want to avoid this, it is not accessible. not accessible at all, okay? So anyone who's using a screen reader, any of that content that's embedded in the image, they have no way of reading it, okay? So just imagine you cannot see, and there's an image that is telling you a date and a time, or a phone number, or an address. You're not seeing that content. And that is what a screen reader, a person using a screen reader is getting, okay? So very important. It's also not device friendly, right? Our website is not mobile device friendly. These images are not device friendly. So it's hard to read on a smaller screen. If I were to look at that web page on my iPhone, I would need to pinch and zoom. And pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom. And it can be really hard to figure out what's going on. Makes it even worse if that image was linked somewhere, okay? Because I may find myself accidentally following that link when in reality, I just want to zoom in to see what's on that. And thirdly, it can easily become pixelated if the original image wasn't produced well, okay? The actual text, if you get really, want to be really stylish and you're using a thin weight font or something, it can be really hard to read, even for someone who's got excellent vision, okay? But number one, most important, is that it's not accessible. So what I did in the better page was say, okay, the main reason why a lot of people actually have text and images on their web pages is because they want their page to stand out for some reason. Okay, they just want to be a little bit different. They want to have a splash of color, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. So what I did was I did just that. Okay, I rearranged the content. Okay, and I said, all right, let's move some things around, but I have text and images, but I just have headline text, not the important content, okay? So we see on the right-hand side of the page, I have my Academy meetings. The only text in that image is Academy meetings. The actual content, the dates, the times, locations, that is actual text on the page, all right? The other thing is that that image that I have, the Academy meetings image, anytime you insert an image into the CMS, you are required to supply alt text or alternative text, okay? This is what the screen reading software uses. And so my alt text says Academy meetings. So that way my people using screen reading software know that that image says Academy meetings. I've now covered my bases, okay? So there's a right way to do it. And then, yeah, so you want to really just stick to those headlines. If you're going to do it, stick to the headlines. Or what you can do, and I don't know if and when it's ready, but I know the NYU IT is working on a very easy way to share resources in terms of making your pages more web accessible, more web friendly. And once that is available, we'll definitely be sharing that out with everyone. But by all means, there's something called W3. And I'll share this out with everyone. I don't think it's in the guide, is it?
We can add it.
Okay, we can add it to the guide. But basically, there's a website dedicated to web standards for how to make your content more accessible. And they talk about if you are embedding an image that you have to have, maybe it's a graph or a chart, like a Venn diagram or something, how to actually do it the best way, okay? So something I'm passionate about, so I want to make sure it gets conveyed. All right. And our third best practice that we're going to share is do not overuse the 8 available accent colors, okay? So in our promo components, I know, I like the little laugh. So in the 8 available promo components, in the promo components, we have 8 available accent colors, okay? So we have black, gray, violet, and there's some other colors. And sometimes what we see on pages is I'm going to add a link, but I'm going to add a couple of different links. So each link is going to be a new color. So we actually don't want that because we might end up with something like this. And in this particular example, I did this on purpose. There's already a lot of color on the page, all right? And anyone who's familiar with Game of Thrones may know why. So if we want to visit the 7 kingdoms, each of those 7 kingdoms, including the King's Landing, has a different flag to it, right? So what I did is the text for each of those promo components, and then the text for the links at the bottom, touring the Citadel, weather reports, travel visas for the 7 kingdoms. Each of those links are a different color. It gets to be a bit much because we already have lots of colors in the promo components, right? There's a lot going on here, all right? As much as I would love to visit the 7 kingdoms, I don't know where and what I should be paying attention to. So why do we want to avoid this? So you're limited in the total number of colors. There are 8 colors, right? So if you have more than 8 links, what are you going to do? What color gets repeated, right? So if I repeat the color violet, does that mean that the violet links are more important than the other color links? One of those colors is black. Black generally is our main color text, right? So does that mean that the links that are in black, are those the most important? Are those the least important? We have gray. Gray is a little bit more subtle. So it's hard to distinguish what's the most important there. It's not visually appealing. It starts to become loud. That's a really loud page, guys. Did that on purpose. Really loud page. And like I was just mentioning before, it's hard to distinguish what's primary and what's secondary. Okay, you want to make it easy for your site viewers. So I redesigned my ideal 7 kingdoms page. I had a little too much fun with this, everyone. A little bit too much fun. And what I did in this example is that I actually did not use black as my color for the text because I wanted to show you that you didn't actually need to use it. You could use some of our secondary colors. So I used the brown color up at the top in the rounded promos, and then I used the light blue, okay? And I specifically chose the light blue as that secondary color because there's also light blue in the map, all right? There was some thought behind that decision. So if you look at the content on your page, and do you have images, are there other things on there? Really think about, is there an accent color that works well with other things on my page? And in this case, there was. And the blue ties in nicely with the other blue, and I can see my attention is going to go to the promos up at the top, and I'm not going to be confused with the links down at the bottom, because that's not what's important. What's important is really the stuff at the top, okay? So I know my primary from my secondary content. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up the list, the full list of best practices. And once again, this will be in that workbook that we're sharing with everyone. And if you do have questions about this, once we do that email, feel free to respond and say, hey, Katie, can you clarify this point? And I have no problem doing that. But just the full list of things that we have seen. And this is from my team, literally. We went around to different pages and we're like, oh, wow, this is a big practice we've seen a lot, that we actually shouldn't be doing it as CMS authors. So we want to avoid mixing those promo styles. We want to avoid using images with text and overuse of colors, but the 5 additional ones, okay? You want to avoid repeating logos or repeating text. So we don't need the NYU logo 4 times on your page, or you don't need the same line of text over and over on your page. Once is fine. The NYU logo is already in the top left corner, so be mindful of that. Overuse of dividers. You don't always need a divider on your page, especially if you're using headers within the body of text. So just be mindful of that. And some of those components already come built in with headers. And so what we've seen sometimes is someone will put in a divider, and then they'll put in a promo component that also has a little mini divider built in. And so we see double dividers, and it's just duplicating that. You don't need to do that. So you're doing double work for yourself. Using outdated logos. We've seen this a lot, especially with social media icons. And my social media coworker to my right over here, I know it hurts his soul. Having empty columns, basically just a giant column with no content, hurts my soul. And then lastly, no content hierarchy. That's an easy fix. Generally, that's just using headers. It's really easy. Highlight the text and add some headers. It also makes it more accessible for sight readers, for screen readers. And like I said, we're going to share that website for making your page more accessible. So that's what I have for layout. But my wonderful coworker Logan is going to talk to you more about design.
Okay, so we're going to go over a bunch of resources that you can use to really make beautiful, engaging pages. But first, I thought it'd be really helpful to go over some tips for web photography, because photos are such a huge part of how we really tell the NYU story to our audience. So there are a couple easy ways you can really maximize the photos that you use in your CMS pages. First thing is quality matters. So a low-res photo is going to send a really bad image. There's a difference between low-res and high-res. Yes? I'm switching.
Yes. Stand here.
Oh, so I can see things.
Yes.
Okay. So high-res photos are typically 300 dpi. That's dots per inch. Those are always going to work. Now that's more for print. 72 dpi is always going to be like your typical screen resolution. But the reason that we sort of stress 300 dpi is because now there's so many different screen sizes. There's retina display. People are going to be viewing things on iPads. So the resolution's increased. And also, since you're putting these pictures normally into the DAM, you might need to resize them or repurpose them for print. So if you can find photos that are really high quality, you're just better off in general. And just like I said, you can always sort of scale down a high-res photo. Whereas if it's low-res and you try to scale it up, it's going to be pixelated, it's going to be all kinds of bad. So it's always better to have high quality. You can do more with it, much more flexibility. So now we're going to show you an example. That's 72 dpi, all kinds of pixelating going on. Not very pretty. That's 300 dpi. Makes a big difference, especially in communicating your message to your audience. Now we're going to talk a minute about brand relevance. You always want to make sure that the photos you are picking are relevant to your site and to whatever message you're trying to convey. If you're talking about libraries, and that's your site, you don't want to show a picture of a cat because really your photos visually communicate your brand. That might be something that your audience is paying attention to, and sometimes more than the text. And really, just consider your content and the context of the photos when you're really selecting the photos that you're going to use on the page. You want to make sure that the photos are complementing the text and that everything kind of works together. Now, this one's fun. Learn about the photo trifecta. Now, this is sort of an easy 3-point way to make sure that you're picking photos that are really powerful. So by the photo trifecta, we talk about images that are actionable. So that means that they have practical value. If you're talking about students studying, you don't want to show a picture of students studying so that your audience can get an image of that. You want to make sure it's really relevant. Emotive photos. We all know that photography sort of ties at our heartstrings. It makes us feel things. So you really want to pick images that have that kind of powerful emotion that people can relate to. And unique. So we're going to show you some examples to really clarify this, but finding a unique photo can be as easy as something that has an interesting angle, maybe some interesting colors. There's just little tweaks in when you're looking that can really kind of make the difference between a photo that's more boring and something that's really engaging. And all of these things, actionable, emotive, unique, they all help to engage your audience. So this is an example of an urban New York City photo. So it's okay, right? It's cool. I wouldn't really call this actionable, unique, or emotive, but I would say this is a much stronger photo. The colors are more vibrant, the perspective. It's still conveying the same urban message, but it's just much more engaging. So I'd much rather look at this photo than the first one. Here's an example of a student, right? This is like your typical stock photo of a student. That's okay, right? She's cool.
I like her hair.
Yeah, she has
Actually.
great hair. She really does. But how about something like this? It's much more engaging. There's a little artistic nature here. Even just, the idea of shooting them from the back. It could tell a whole different type of story. And I feel like there's so much more emotional impact with this one. So again, these are little tweaks. And by the way, these photos that you're seeing, they're all free. And we're going to give you links to places where you can find these. So it's no magic. These aren't like super expensive photos. It's all super accessible. Cropping. All crops are not created equal. This is super, super important, especially since you're able to crop your photos in the CMS. So when you're cropping, make sure that you're telling a clear story. Really think about what you're showing and the message you're trying to convey. We're going to show you 3 different images, well, the same image cropped in 3 different ways, and how the impact of the photo is completely different each time. So the first one sends one message, maybe studying, library. The second one is sort of more focused in on the people. And the third one could be anything. It could be like a Starbucks ad, could be like a laptop situation. I'm not really sure what the third one's about. Are we looking at the guy's face? So all 3 of those are just different ways of interpreting the same image. So when you're cropping or when you're choosing photos, really make sure that the crop is telling the story that you want it to tell. Now this is the fun part. And we're going to give you a bunch of links that can make it super easy for you to really implement all of these things. We're going to talk about all of these, but the ones that I just wanted to briefly mention are social media assets and the NYU resources section. So that's kind of what Katie was touching on before. These will all have links to the most current logos and brand assets for Facebook, Instagram, all the chats that you use. So you won't have to worry about like doing a Google search for them. These are all accurate. And the NYU resources are very similar. You can get like the updated logos, color palettes. So that stuff, you're golden. We're not going to touch on those too much right now. We're going to go over some of the other things that are a little more unique. So the first one, this is something called Interface Sketch. So whenever I'm designing something, whenever anyone asks me about page layout, I always tell them to start with a sketch. It's super easy. You can do it on a napkin. Actually, things at NYU that we're working on have been designed on napkins. And it's a really good way to kind of get your ideas down before you go into the CMS. Because it's daunting. It's like, this white screen of anything. So I think it's always good to kind of get your thoughts down. Now, if you don't want to use straight paper, this site will actually give you browsers that you can design in. So they'll have web browsers. There's for iPads if you're interested in doing like responsive design. There are also templates for iPhones, Samsung phones, and these are all downloadable as PDFs. And it's hard to make out on the screen, but some of them have graph lines and some of them don't. So it's super accessible. You can kind of find whichever templates work best for you. So super encourage you to sketch out before you go to the CMS. It'll make things much easier. You'll have a much more fully formed idea of what you're doing. So if you're looking for icons, let's say you need a calendar icon. Instead of stressing about it or going to Google, you can actually use fonts and use them. So this is an example of a font called a glyph icon. So in this example, we've typed in calendar, and that's what the calendar icon looks like. There's another one that's called Font Awesome. I use this all the time. These are all just really easy ways to get icons. And then depending on how advanced you are, you can always bring these into like a program like Photoshop or Illustrator, change the colors, have a lot of fun with them. So I'd really encourage you to go to these types of sites to get your icon-y type of things. So we gave you a lot of resources for stock photos that are all free. This is an example of one of my favorites called Pixabay. What I like about this one is that it will tell you the size of the images. You can select small, medium, or large. Typically always get the large because you're golden. But all the sites that are listed have really engaging photos like this, and they're all public domain and they're all high quality. So if you're looking for something, science, students, education, you can really use these sources and find really nice images. You can really add some pop to your site.
So you were talking about the resolution and BPIs earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a really good example of what typically you find, which is size and weight, if not the actual BPIs. How can we translate that directly?
That's a really good question. I would say always go toward the largest size because that'll definitely have the highest resolution. So
So there's no way of knowing what the BPIs of photos there are on the internet are? Or?
depending on what you have at your disposal, yes. Like if you were to download one of these and bring it into a program like Photoshop, then you can look it up and it'll tell you the image resolution. But if you don't have that stuff, a rule of thumb is the larger the image is, sort of you're guaranteed to have good quality.
Is there a correlation between the weight or the size of the BPIs that kind of guide us to a size that's appropriate?
I would say really anything, like in this example, even the medium would be fine. Anything that's over 1,000 is going to be pretty large. So in that sense, that's the sort of, you have to think about the scale in which you're using it. So normally you're not going to use anything on your site in a larger space than that, so it will still show up as high quality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a cough, not a question. Okay, this one is so fun. This is called Pictaculous. So let's say you have an image that you really like and you're just trying to figure out colors that you can use with it. You can literally upload your image to this website, as long as it's a PNG, GIF, or JPEG. Press a button, and then ta-da, you get a color palette. So you can use this really as inspiration, or we're going to show you another tool in which you can actually input these. They're called hex values. Those are names for colors, basically, on the internet. So you can input these hex values to create your own color palette. So those are basic tools. Really, everyone can get some sort of value out of them. These next sets of tools are a little more advanced. So we're going to deal with color, product mockups, and retouching. The ones that we don't have screenshots of that I'll just mention briefly are the Color Contrast Analyzer. So with this, it's a program that you download for either Windows or Mac, and you can input the hex value if you have one in mind, like your color name, and this tool will tell you whether or not that color is accessible for the web. So it's really useful if accessibility is one of your concerns. And Pixaden is just a site for getting product mockups. So let's say you really need like an iPad or a Samsung phone and you don't feel like taking a picture of yours. This site will have mockups for you. Usually they're free and they're also Photoshop files. So if you have access to that, you can bring it into Photoshop and tweak it.
That's where I got those mock-ups for my displays when I did mine.
Yeah, that's a neat little trick. So in terms of color, this is called Adobe Color. It's also free. And if you do have that hex value in mind, you would put it in right on the bottom of the screen under RGB. And you can do a lot of things from here. So this is our NYU Violet color. Once I put it in, I can actually choose complementary colors, compound colors, monochromatic colors. This is an example of complementary colors. So if I were to click on each one, I'd have the hex value, and I can use that, if I'm trying to create my own color palette. So I use this all the time. I think it's super useful. And one more thing we're going to touch on. The last link that I gave you is for a suite of Adobe mobile apps. So these apps are all free, and they'll work on your iPad or iPhone. This is an example of one of my favorites called Adobe Post. So let's say you need to do some sort of messaging for social media. This will give you a series of templates that's in the middle column, and you can customize those very easily. So on the last image on the right, that is sort of this is an Instagram post that I created. It probably took like 5 minutes. And you're able to customize the sizes for different social media sites. You can also, I think they give you other dimensions. So it's really useful if you're interested in sending messaging that way. And with this, you can save it to your phone, you can email it to yourself, or if you create a free Adobe account, you can actually store it in the Adobe Cloud and access it that way. So this is really useful. And there's another program called Canva that's going to be on your resources sheet that is very similar to this, but that works on desktop. So, those are some really great tools. And if you are creating your own graphics, we really recommend you keeping these sizes in mind. These sizes are for columns, and the column on the right are promo sizes. So you'll need to sort of use these widths if you want to create graphics that are the right dimensions for the CMS. Those are some tips to help you create awesome designs.
Yeah, and we will, don't worry, we will be emailing all this out to you, so you will have those sizes with you. Because one of the questions that I get a lot is, Katie, I'm going to make something special for my webpage. What size does the image have to be that goes in a one-column promo? And that is the exact dimensions. Because I always ask my coworker, and he's like, Katie, you've asked me 4 times already today. This is the size. So I wrote it down one day. So I have to stop asking him. So something that Logan and I joke about, we talk to each other about, especially when in context of this particular training. And you may have heard the quote before because Bill Gates has said it. A lot of tech entrepreneurs, people who design web pages have said it, which is content is king. But we're like, no. If content is king, then design is queen, right? They really do go hand in hand. So if you really want your site viewers to engage in your content and respond well, if you want them to take action that's on your page, you really need to make sure that the design is complementing that, okay? And you have a thing that you like to say.
Everyone has a tiny designer inside of them. Yeah.
I didn't tell him I wanted him to say that, but I just thought it was so adorable that Logan. Yeah, Logan's like, everyone's a designer. Everyone can be a designer.
Everyone, it's just learning how to use colors and layout. Everyone can do it. And these tools make it super accessible, so it doesn't have to seem scary or intimidating.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put him on the spot.
That's pretty good. I remember.
I know you remember. But I just love that line. But yeah, they do really go hand in hand. But we really wanted to make sure, oh man, we are awesome. We really wanted to make sure that we had time for question and answer, and we gave ourselves time, plenty of time for question and answer for everyone. So, have at it. What kind of questions do you guys have? There's even a slide for it. Yes.
So when I've tried to create promos for our intranet, what I'll do is I'll just take like previous promos that we've had and just like Photoshop over them.
Okay.
Are there templates available? Because I didn't know about the color options. You guys help like different colors.
There are not templates.
They're not templates yet. The colors are all available online. You can see on one of the links that we give you, you can see all the web colors.
On the marketing page?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I've seen that. Okay. So limit to those colors, but because I'm having a hard time like in Photoshop like recreating like the rounded corners and like all that.
Okay, that's actually a good point. So don't worry about recreating rounded corners. That's not a problem at all. So if you're going to make your own little promo, stick to that square size. So stick to the 162 by 109, and it is a requirement in the CMS after you insert an image to hit crop for every single promo that requires an image. By hitting crop, it says, okay, I've got my image, I'm now cropping and adding the rounded corners. Yeah. So don't worry about that. Just get your square right, or your rectangle rather, and it'll do the rest. But no, there's not a template. I don't know if that's something that we can offer, but that's we can talk about it. We can talk about it and we'll see what we can do. But absolutely, that one link we're sending out will have the names and the hex codes if you want to use our secondary colors in your promos, which is something that I love to do because I'm a nerd. Sorry. What other questions do we have? Is there anything
from online?
Yeah, anything from online. Ask away. This is what we're here for.
Nothing on this end so far.
Okay.
Maybe it's also clear.
Wonderful. I mean, I didn't expect to be so clear and wonderful, but that works. Is there anything you want us to expand on? No? Explain further?
Anything that made no sense whatsoever, and you're like, huh?
Some of those tools for like Adobe Post.
They're offering.
Yeah. We would never, in good conscience, share with you a tool that costs money.
Right.
We do have a question that came
Yes.
in. What font did you use for this presentation?
Oh, we use only the official NYU fonts, which are Gotham and Mercury. And we also use the official NYU colors.
Good question.
Thank you. Yeah. Who's that coming?
That's from Diane.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. I only use official fonts and colors. Don't you nerd. All right. Well, I mean, you guys always, like I said, email with a question. No problem responding that way. We are, like I said, we're going to share the workbook that has all of those links and everything.
The contact us stuff.
Oh, yes.
So if you do have questions later,
If you do have questions, here are some places to do so. I just realized my email address is not on here. It's cms.training@nyu.edu if you need to email, which is the email address that has been communicating with you and will send you your follow-up. That's me. It is one of my many aliases.
There's additional question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a separate CMS training on uploading, editing, and activating pages?
Yes, that would be my CMS 101 or my hands-on beginner CMS training. And if you send me a follow-up email, I will send you the tutorial for it as well. We'll do
good
that.
question.
Yeah, absolutely. Question.
When would you talk about the upcoming web changes?
When I have anything official to announce.
Later, third quarter, fourth quarter?
At the right time. I used to work for Apple, and sometimes people would say, "What's the right number of how many employees do you have at a given time?" People would ask, and I would say the right number, the right amount, because it's a non-answer answer.
There you go.
That's I have a non-answer answer for you. Do we have another question on this side? Yeah. Hey. So here's the thing about animated GIFs. Because Zach asked this question yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was really funny. And we actually got to the bottom of this. That was the first time someone asked me that question. Okay, so animated GIFs, for those of you who don't know, it's a picture that moves. Okay. Yes, I just animated GIF myself. So if you wanted to link directly to an image and just say, hey, check out this really super cool image, and you send someone a direct URL, and they open it up and it's in their browser and it's just an image, that works. But you cannot have an image in your web page using the image component that is an animated GIF. It actually shows up super pixelated because the image wants to move and it won't. So you see it, and then you see kind of like grayed out areas because it's like, oh, it's like, I want to move, but I'm not moving. But the direct URL of it will. Okay, so if from a storage perspective, like a link off to, that can work. I tried it with an awesome GIF yesterday.
Is there any way to print a page on nyu.edu with it coming out without all the links?
Like built into the actual thing, just hit print?
Just hit print and a page, and when you do it, it's all
wonky. There are two ways that I can think to do this, which would be to, and neither of them I think anyone's gonna like, which is to screenshot, which is what I do. I screenshot. And then if you use Chrome, there's a built-in, or rather an extension you can get, which is the one that Jen uses. Nimbus. And what Nimbus lets you do is it lets you take a screenshot, but if there's scrolling on the page, Nimbus accounts for that. And so it'll do the whole page. So you actually have a screenshot of the entire page. That way you can then print out the full screenshot instead of having to do screenshot, scroll, screenshot, scroll.
So it is a screenshot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what you'll have to do, but it's the best. Nimbus. Yeah. Like in Harry Potter. Sorry, guys. It's true. Yes, we had another question. Go for it.
Yeah, just real quick, is there like a place on your y'all's website or something where you can get like the official like hex codes for all the NYU colors and to download the Mercury fonts?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Yes to the hex codes and colors. We will. Yeah, style
You can
guide.
list them actually. We can just put them in.
Yeah, we'll put
Style guide.
yeah, nyu.edu/style guide will actually take you to the site that has not only the web colors, but it has the print official hex colors as well, including a PDF that is like a really nice reference of all the different color palettes for print. But you can also, if you want to use them for web, fine. But we are absolutely sending you one. There's a web guide, and the web guide has the 8 specific colors that are already available for you in the CMS and those hex codes. So because things have to be confusing, you have the print colors and then you have the web colors because that's how life is. The fonts, however, the official fonts, no, we cannot send those to you because those cost dollars. So your department either has the fonts or they don't have the fonts. However, we have approved backup fonts, which are, is it Arial and Helvetica?
Yeah.
I'll double check, but we have for Gotham there's an appropriate substitute, and for Mercury there's an appropriate substitute that you can use. It's just that only certain departments need the font. So our department, because we make the things.
Just because it's expensive.
Yeah. Was there another question? Peter?
No, I've just been answering them for you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Chris, for being a typist for us. I'm going to steal this water again. Were there any other questions? Yes.
Sorry, this is kind of another question, but it's a little bit based off of a random or a side note about social media. In terms of the logos we have, like let's say for like Twitter or Facebook, do those need to be like the official office department logos as well, or can they be kind of a more playful one to make it more visually catching?
The ones that you're using within your actual account, like your Facebook account?
Yeah.
That's actually a Chris question.
Yeah.
We have the right person here.
That's a great question. And actually, we actually have a cheap plug, I suppose, but we have a training coming up on about these visuals coming up in May, I believe on the 5th. But to that question, I will say this. There is a social media guide that speaks to some of this. There's nothing wrong with having fun. The biggest things, there are rules and guidelines that Twitter and all these other places certainly have, but the biggest thing is that we do not have people using the torch as well because it gets very confusing, and that's been a big thing that we had to crack down on. But you can have some fun. You can, we have some design styles and suggestions in the social media style guide, which is on that same social media style guide, on that same, if you go nyu.edu/style guide, there's a social media guide there. But as I noted on May 5th, we're going to go a little bit more in depth on this, myself and Mark Courtney, who is behind the whole branding of the university. So check that out on May 5th if you want a more in-depth conversation on it, because we're certainly going to approach that question.
Chris, it sounds like you have something going on May 5th.
Yes. I also have something going on now, so I have to run.
Okay.
But you can borrow the
Thank
computer.
you so much for letting me borrow the computer. I would recommend going out the side door, by the way. Okay. Were there any other questions? No. If everyone feels good about life, universe, then I have no problem dismissing this class. Like I said, we are doing email follow-up. Feel free to go ahead and submit questions that way. For those of you who came in after these announcements, please do me a favor and sign in on the sign-in sheet. That is how we know who to email with our workbook. Yeah, you can take that back, thanks. And then also there are little feedback forms. We want to know what you wanted more of, what you really liked, what we can do better for next time, because this was something, like I said, that a lot of people had asked about, and we want to make sure that we can continue this kind of training for everyone. Okay?
How can we make this the most valuable for you? Let us know.
Exactly.
Thanks everyone online if you're still
Presses.
online.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, look, it even says thank you.
you.
And we will post this recording.